Senator Black, Ontario.
Honourable colleagues, I would like to begin by echoing the words of my colleagues in this chamber and in the other place to thank all those frontline healthcare workers, cashiers, store clerks, grocery store employees, truck drivers, and the many other Canadians putting their own personal health at risk to help all of us get through this pandemic together. I rise today to speak on Bill C-13 and to join my colleagues in supporting the need for this emergency aid package to help Canadians cope with the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. As many of our fellow senators cannot and should not be here today, I will be sharing some of my views and some concerns of my Canadian Senators Group colleagues. I don't need to reiterate the fact that we are in unprecedented times. We all know that. We have all been affected by this virus already, either directly or indirectly. Personally, I have family members who have been laid off and family members who are in self-isolation and quarantine because of recent travel. I've been heartened to see the efforts of so many Canadians to stay at home and avoid contributing to the spread of this virus. However, as we know, and as government knows, more needs to be done. Many Canadians are in precarious financial situations, whether they've been laid off, had their hours cut, or have had to use their vacation days to stay at home to self-isolate. During this time of crisis, people are still expected to pay their rent and mortgage, handle their other bills, take care of their families, all while worrying that they and their loved ones might fall sick. This legislation introduces emergency funds to help individual Canadians as well as businesses. It includes measures to increase the GST tax credit, the Canadian Child Benefit, a reduction in the minimum withdrawals from RSPs, as well as income supports to those who suffer income loss, including a new leave of up to 16 weeks for federally regulated employees. It provides several other supports to reduce financial strain on Canadians, including a program for the government to purchase mortgages from the Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corporation and providing a pause for interest for student loans. Canadian business will also be helped by this legislation. Small business will be eligible for a temporary wage subsidy. Additionally, it will allow Export Development Canada to develop domestic business, which is important now that our borders are more restricted. The Business Development Bank of Canada Act will also be amended to ensure continued availability of funds for entrepreneurs. Importantly, the government has designated an additional $5 billion to the agriculture and agri-food industry, to those who are suffering during this time, but who must continue working to provide us with food. Despite the COVID-19 pandemic, we still have to maintain the value chain from producer to consumer. This includes not only farming and processing, but also things like meat inspection and much more. The government is investing further in Farm Credit Canada, through which farmers can obtain loans. While this is good news, I do have some concerns with this, as does my colleague, Senator Wallin. These are additional loans to farmers, loans that will need to be paid back. This deferral may cause serious hardship when it's required to be paid back. Workers in other industries have increased access to employment insurance, which, rightfully, they do not have to repay. But our farmers will just have to pay their loans back. I'm hopeful that with the expeditious passing and royal assent of this legislation, the financial assistance needed by many will be able to flow quickly. There are certain groups that will be affected more than others by this crisis, including those with casual and unsustainable employment, families with children and several mouths to feed, young people who are trying to pay off student loans while they also try to save for their first home, and more. I am pleased to see that their needs were considered in this legislation, and I'm optimistic that the measures will alleviate at least some of the pressure they face today. From reacting to concerns in the agriculture sector's immediate need for temporary foreign workers and seasonal agricultural workers, to working with all opposition parties in both chambers to get this emergency funding into the hands of those who need it, the government has done a good job during this difficult time. They've reacted and acted quickly during this crisis to the many different issues arising on a daily basis, while collaborating with other levels of government and opposition parties and keeping us all informed. Of course, there are still questions and unknowns ahead of us because, frankly, we don't know what will happen in this unprecedented situation. We do know that before introducing this legislation in the House of Commons, the government removed measures that would give sweeping powers to ministers. Instead, further legislation might be needed in coming months, depending on how things go. I understand that the other place has agreed to a negotiated agreement that will enable their finance and health committees to have virtual meetings to provide for parliamentary oversight. The Senate needs to reconstitute similar or all committees today, or it risks becoming irrelevant. For food security and interests, it might be important that we consider the Agriculture and Forestry Committee to be reconstituted or included in some of those discussions. I do have some concerns, though, some of which are shared by my colleagues here in the chamber. I worry that this may not be enough to help us weather this health crisis. People and businesses need assistance now. Will the government have the capacity to distribute funds quickly enough to those in need? We have all heard that there have been almost 1 million applications for employment insurance within the past week. Will they be able to distribute the emergency funds fast enough? What about those Canadians living in rural and remote parts of Canada? They already have connectivity issues. Will they be able to access the funds through an already overloaded infrastructure? My CSG colleagues have concerns and questions too, some of which were already asked during the earlier Committee of the Whole. Will Business Development Bank of Canada be able to keep up with requests before businesses are forced to fold? Is enough being done to protect small and medium-sized businesses? Will the oil and gas industry be protected? How are we ensuring that people are self-isolating after traveling? And how can we enforce social distancing? Before closing, I want to take this opportunity to say thank you to farmers and others in the agri-food industry and value chain who ensure that we have a continuous supply of food even in these uncertain times. I also want to say thank you to those who are doing their part to help others in whatever way they can. The most important and effective way to help right now is to stay at home. And if you must go out, practice social distancing. If you haven't been following the advice of doctors and government, please think about the effects of your actions. Even if you aren't worried about the virus yourself, which you should be, think about people in vulnerable groups, those who are immune compromised, those who have underlying health conditions, and those who are older. Your carelessness could further the spread of this virus. Colleagues, thank you for listening. Let's remember to look out for each other and be kind to each other and do what we can to keep ourselves and others healthy. We must work together to help flatten the curve. Thank you. Merci. Miigwech.